Hey, I'm Kai, and in today's video I'm going to check out some of the original high gain amps in the Fractal FM3. This video was actually requested by a viewer over in the chat channel of my Discord, which I will leave a link to in the description box down below. Also, all of the dialed in amp blocks from this video are going to be uploaded as a zip file into my stuff channel on the Discord, so if you'd like to pick those up, that's the place to do it. I'm not going to do a huge overview for this video because we have a lot of tones to get into, but I am going to talk about them quickly. The FAS amps are all original, idealized versions of amps, rather than being true-to-life recreations. Some of them are spliced together Franken amps from different parts of different amps, other ones are just tweaked versions of other amps in the unit. Also, some of them are just built straight from the ground up with a specific tone or goal in mind. For this video, I'm going to be using my Balaguer Woodman, which is currently tuned down to drop A sharp. Rather than dialing in everything on the fly for this video, I've instead opted to build presets in advance. Each amp is going to have 3 different tone showcases. The first is going to be the default setting for the amp running into the mega oversized impulse response from ML Soundlab. The second clip will be a dialed in version, still running through the same IR and with no boost up front. The third clip for each amp is going to be a little bit more of an embellished tone, so I may run a boost up front and I may swap out the impulse response. You can use the timestamps in the description box down below if you would like to skip around and compare the different tones. I am going to run through all of these amps in alphabetical order just as they show up on the model list in the unit, but it does seem awful fitting that we're starting with the FAS 6160, which is of course based on the classic PV5150 block letter. The FAS 6160 should be less fizzy than both the real 5150 and the 5150 model we have in the unit. Here's what it sounds like on the default settings. I do really like how this one sounds on the default settings, but obviously I am going to tweak it just a little bit. It's got some fuzzy stuff going on in the low mids, and I also want to give it just a little bit more snarl. It's almost set in stone that I have to boost this one with the Tube Screamer Overdrive, but I've also swapped out the cabinet for the Mega Gent cab. The next Fractal original amp I'm going to be checking out is one that I have actually checked out in a previous video. This is the FAS Brootalz with a Z. According to the notes, this is a blend of an SLO 100 and an Engel Savage. I'm not sure what's up with the low end of the default settings of this one. It's got some super deep subby stuff that I'm not really getting along with there. I do like the vibe otherwise though, so let's hear how I've dialed it in. The third tone is going to be the FAS Brootalz Boosted with the FAS Boost, and then we're running out to the Mega Green Cabinet. Next up we have the FAS Hot Rod. Now this is going for that sort of modded Marshall kind of vibe. According to the notes, this is supposed to be less boomy than a Friedman, it's supposed to be brighter than a Bogner, and it's supposed to be more compressed than a Splawn. Again, we'll start by hearing it on the default settings. The stock settings of this amp really don't do it justice. It sounds dark, it sounds boomy, it sounds muddy, and I've really got no idea what was going on with it. For the dialed in tone, I've bumped up the treble, I've cut the low end a little, and I've also raised the gain considerably. Then for the embellished tone, we're once again using the FAS boost up front, and we've got the Mega Gen impulse response after the amp. This amp is a pretty tough one to dial in, and I'm not super sure how I feel about it. I think it's probably going to be good for less tight genres like hardcore maybe, so let's give that a try. Not that much better all in all, but it definitely suits more so than it did with the riffs I was playing previously. Now, I couldn't find out a whole lot of information about the Lead 1 and Lead 2 amps. It seems like they're built totally from the ground up with a specific tone in mind. That tone, given the name, is probably going to be a lead tone, but we're going to see how they work for rhythm in this video. Largely because that fits the format of the video, but also partially because I'm just a total caveman when it comes to playing lead. The default settings on this amp are pretty low gain, and once again they're kind of dark sounding, but let's hear what they're doing. Now these settings could just be because this amp is more of a lead kind of thing, but let's hear how I've got it dialed in. For the third tone, I actually have this one boosted with the grinder in the boost section so that we can get some real aggression out of it. For the impulse response, I'm actually sticking with the mega oversized impulse that we heard in the previous ones. I just found that this one fit the best. For the Lead 2 amp, I don't really have any more discussion to add, so let's get straight into the default setting. I do quite like this default setting. It's not super tight, but it's thick and it's chugging hard. I did dial it in a little bit less thick for my own setting, but with a bit more gain as well. The third tone is boosted with the T808 mod, and it's running into the Uber cab for some German sizzle. Onto the modern amp now, and as far as I'm aware, this is another one that was built pretty much from the ground up. The only sliver of spec that I have available on this one is that it was loosely based on a Recto, but trying to tighten it up similar to how Rev did. I barely tweaked this one for the dialed in tone. I basically just raised the master volume because I wanted a little bit more oomph out of it. Let's also hear this one with the FAS boost and the Mega Gen impulse response, which I'm quickly finding to be some of my favourite combinations. Modern 2 is supposed to be a tighter version of the Modern 1 amp, blending in some 5150-esque characteristics. This is one of my favourite sounding original models right out the gate. This just sounds great on the default settings. I really love how this one sounds, so all I really needed to do for the dialed in version was cut some of the lows and boost a bit of the presence. The Super OD works really nicely into the front end of this amp and takes it into sort of different territories. I'm actually leaving the cabinet as is for this one because I feel like it's the best pick. Now, I have no details on the Modern 3, however you can sort of assume it's that same sort of thing as the Modern 1 and the Modern 2, just pushed a little bit further. I will say the default settings on this one aren't my favourite, they're a little bit loose and a little bit lacking. Dialed in though, we can get this one to sound extremely heavy. This is another amp I really like with the grinder boost, since it's such an aggressive boost that cuts out a lot of the low end. This is using the Mega 1992 cab. Skull Crusher is quite a descriptive name, and I don't think anyone needs the manual to tell you that this is a high gain amp. This one is designed for total brutality, and the stock settings lead you most of the way there. They could do with a little bit of a polish though, just to add some grind. I found that this amp really comes alive when you use it with the Uber cab, especially when it's boosted with the FAS boost. That's definitely not a technique that I play all that often, so I apologise if I completely messed that up. The last amp I'm checking out in this video is something of a recent addition, and I believe I have covered this one in a previous video. It's the FAS Stealth Blue, which only has minor tweaks from the actual Stealth Blue model in the Fractal already. As far as I can tell, this is just sort of the digital idealized version instead of the authentic model that we have available otherwise. This is another amp that sounds fantastic on the stock settings. In fact, my dialed in tone doesn't really sound all that far from the stock settings. The last tone we're going to do in this video is going to be the boosted version of the FAS Stealth Blue, which feels awful fitting to bookend it with boosted 5150s. This is boosted with the T808 mod, and we're running out to the Mars Mofo cabinet. So that was 31 clips of high gain rhythm guitar tones for you. Let me know what you thought of them. I found a lot of the stock settings to be pretty dark, but all of the amps seem to brighten up quite nicely. Those sort of dark stock settings are pretty malleable and open to quite a lot of different guitars and different use cases. I'm playing high gain rhythm guitars on a low tuned guitar. Some people may be playing through E standard guitars running through a traditional Van Halen-y kind of thing, and they want their high gain to do that instead. Fractal's default settings aren't really default settings at all either. It's just pretty much the amp with everything on noon. I really do enjoy the Fractal amp models. I think they're kind of underrated really. A lot of people tend to gravitate towards amps they recognize in the real world rather than the Fractal originals, and I think that's a real shame. There are some absolute gems in here. I think my favorite one was the FAS 6160 Boosted, but I also have a lot of love for the Modern too. Thank you for checking this video out. I have a couple of things I would like to mention before I go though. The first being that all of these sounds you heard in this demo are going to be available as a block library download in my Discord, so feel free to come and join using the link in the description box down below. Also, while this video isn't sponsored, I do have a Thomann affiliate link in the description as well, so if you're ever shopping at Thomann, it would be great if you could use my link as it gives me a nice little bit of kickback. That is all for this video though, so thank you ever so much for watching. I've been Kai.